So today I'm going to show you guys how to use layer mask. I'm really excited about layer masking because that is one of the, I believe to be like the fundamentals of Photoshop, and it's one of those things that I feel like it's so necessary but not everybody has. Like a pot. Everybody has a pot. Anyways, okay, so I'm just gonna get rid of this with the spot healing real quick because it's gonna drive me nuts. And then we'll get started. Okay, so first we're gonna duplicate the image. So first of all, layer masks is a technique that you can use to isolate certain parts of the image and to only work on those parts of the image. At first, I really couldn't understand layer masking or didn't really know how to use it, but once I did, it just like really makes such a huge difference in my images. So today I'm going to show you how to do it. So this image is overall really dark, and there are certain things that I want to make dark, like the black part of this this cabinet, but then I want the walls to be really kind of white and stark. So this is an example where layer masking will really come in handy because I need to, for example, like if I wanted to use the curves to affect a certain part of the image. So now I'm bringing the walls brighter, but then it's also affecting the cabinet. Just turn it on and off for you guys to see. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna paint on the layer mask out the part that it's affecting, that I don't want it to affect, and then leave the parts I do. So like for example, I actually do want my laptop to be brighter because I think, for example, if I paint it out, then it looks darker and I prefer it to look brighter. So I'm gonna hit backspace. That's the shortcut key to show you the where your layer mask is hitting. And so right now, this curves adjustment is making the image brighter, except for the parts that I painted out black. And so I can see that it's actually affecting the books, and the books is something that I do want to be brighter. So I'm gonna paint it back in using a white paintbrush, and I'm gonna hit the shortcut key X to toggle back and forth between the foreground and background color, which is the black and white color. And I'm just gonna toggle it back to white and then start painting here so I can get the laptop and the books. And I'm gonna make my brush smaller using the bracket key to just paint this back in. So I like using this kind of like backspace masking to kind of see where it's affecting it, and because when I'm painting sometimes I can't see other than the fact that it shows it here on the layer mask, but using the red it will show you exactly where you painted it and where you still need to paint it. So like this part of the cabinet. So just to see a before and after, and you can see, just watch the cabinet. This layer is not affecting any part of the cabinet. Now one thing about this cabinet is that it's actually supposed to be black, but it's reading like gray here. So I'm actually going to make it darker because I don't want to see it. And then I'm gonna, okay, so now that I used a levels adjustment and I brought all the shadows down, it's affecting the whole image. So what I like to do is go to layer mask, hit Command I, and brush, and then just brush the cabinet. Now the reason I hit Command I is because I just inverted this whole layer mask to all black, and then that makes it easy for me because I only want to paint in a small section. So if, for example, if I weren't to, give me 1 second. If I didn't invert it, then I would have to paint this whole thing black for the parts where I don't want it. I'm going to turn it to 100 opacity. I'm going to have to paint this whole image where I don't want it to affect it. And as you can see, it's not the most precise if I have to do that. When you're layer masking, you want to mask you only want to use the brush tool on the smallest part of the image as possible. Like you don't want to like do what I'm doing right now and paint the whole image red, because that is just like not as efficient and accurate. So what I would do is delete this, make a layer mask, Command I, and then just paint the cabinet. And that is a lot faster, my friends. Okay, and then I would just put this at maybe 80% so it doesn't look super obvious. And then there's like this red reflection part here, which I don't love, so I'm gonna desaturate that part. So again, I'm going to invert the layer mask and then only paint in with a white brush instead of a black brush the areas that I want to be desaturated. I feel like layer masks are really confusing to explain, and I'm not sure if I'm explaining it 100%. So if you guys have any questions, like just leave me a comment, and then I'll answer it through there. I feel like it just takes a minute to understand layer masking. So again, you don't want to accidentally paint. Since this is a desaturation layer, you don't want to accidentally paint like the gold part of the cabinet. And you can kind of see this part is already kind of being affected and being desaturated. So I'm going to hit backspace to see the areas that I'm affecting. And one trick that I have, you guys, is when I'm brushing, I like to hit shift. I like to hold shift and then click to the area that I want to do, so then it creates a straight line. So it comes in handy, like for example, if I'm trying to get the edge of this cabinet, I'll switch to black and then click this once, hold shift, and then click all the way down here to where I want it to cover, and it'll automatically create this very straight and perfect line. So then I can switch back to white and then go on the other side and create an equally straight line. I'm just going to do this one more time. Okay. Did I just like blow your minds? It's just something that comes in handy sometimes. Okay, I'm going to show it to you guys again. You click. Oops, I'm going to switch to white. Okay, and then, okay. So you click, hold shift, and then click anywhere else in the image, and it will create a straight line. Okay, I'm going to do it again. Hold shift. So, I mean, it really only comes in handy when you're editing product. I don't think it ever comes in handy when you're I'm just going to clean up these blemishes using spot healing for a sec. But yeah, that shift click only comes in handy when you're editing product. It never really comes in handy when you're editing a face. But because I'm a product photographer, that has saved my butt a few times. Okay. So these are my layer masks. Let's see the before and after. So overall, I've brightened the image, but if you look at the cabinet, I've kept the blacks black. So that's one thing I really like about doing layer masks, is that I can target specific areas. So like this, for example, is a desaturation layer that I'm only targeting on the surface of the cabinet. And then this middle layer is a darkening layer where I'm only, again, targeting the surface of the cabinet. And then this is a brightening layer that targets everything else except the cabinet. So there you go. And I feel like this is like not done yet, so I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to keep adding, because I'm just looking at like this part of the wall here and it still looks really dark to me, so I'm just going to keep brightening it. I'm going to brighten the midtones as well as the highlights, and then I'm going to Command I to invert that layer mask, and then use a big brush. In this case, I will, in this case, I will paint out the layer mask using a big brush, just because I wanted to control exactly where the brightening points will be. It's just up to you how you want to do it, but this is how I want to do it. Okay. And I know you're probably thinking you're going too far, it looks a little blown out, and you're totally right. I like to edit to the point where, oh, it looks like it's starting to get blown out, and then I'll dial it back. So I'm going to bring it back to like 60%. Cool. And then I'm going to sharpen this image. One thing that really bugs me is this monitor. It just looks like greasy. I'm going to go back to the desaturation layer and fill in the laptop as well, so I can kind of get a cleaner. And then again, I'm going to do shift click. See, I told you guys, it comes in handy when editing product. Okay, that looks so much better, and now I just have to get rid of those like smudgy fingerprints. Do you guys have this problem with your MacBook? Because mine is constantly just getting dirty. Like, I feel like I'm like always cleaning my screen. Okay, so for little things like that, I like to use spot healing. And then for this, I'm going to use Clone Stamp. And because the fingerprint is here, I'm sampling from this area to copy over for a cleaner line. And you guys might be wondering like, oh, it looks purple in your sample brush, and that's because it's not picking up on the layer mask. But because this layer mask is still in effect, it will, I'm gonna paint this out actually. It will, because this sits on top of this, so even like, for example, if I took this away, like I'm still preserving the color in this, but because the desaturation layer sits on top of this photo, it's still going to be affecting it. And that's one thing I really like about layer masking too, is it's a very non-destructive way to work, because you can still keep the original colors and files of everything. Okay, perfect. Okay, that looks a million times better. And I'm very much about doing things like just like 10% things that you'll never notice, but then once you do them, you're like, holy cow, that photo. So just like little things like that really bug me, and I'll like get rid of it and you'll never notice, like you wouldn't have noticed. But then because I noticed it, I feel like it just makes an image like 10% better. I don't know, am I neurotic? Or do you guys feel that too? There is such a thing as being overly edited though. Just putting that out there. Okay. So that's the before and the after of using layer mask. And this has been edited with all layer masks. So this is the first one. This is for the walls, for the laptop, for the credenza, and the credenza. So I think I'm gonna do like one last brightening layer, pushing all the darks down, and then just bringing it back to 70%. Maybe I'll paint out the lamp. I'll use like a 60% brush, and I'll paint back the lamp in so that there's more of an edge. See? Have you guys ever used layer mask before? What's your take on this? Do you need it? Do you not need it? Personally, for me, I can't live without layer masking. This is the before and after, and share with me in the comments what you thought about this.